All right. Good morning. Still feeling a little bit under the weather from the second COVID shot. Actually, my lymph nodes are really swollen. The fever and the headache and all of those type of things have passed, but still a little bit inflamed on the lymph nodes. Energy levels are so getting better, but yeah. So let's talk about today's video. And also, just between yesterday and today, more subscribers came in. Very happy about that. I think there was like 141 or 140 yesterday, so another 10. So getting closer to that goal of 1,000. But today's video is a little different. It's not so much a screen share showing stock positions. It's not so much, Benjamin Graham, Jack Bogle, Peter Lynch, John Templeton, investing focus. It's actually more along the lines of my ancestors, Aristotle and Plato, meaning it's more philosophical than detail oriented, specific to investing. So what do I mean by that? Well, in today's video, I want to discuss basically the desire for wealth and the motivation for the desire for wealth. What motivates people to want to be rich? And from my study, I want to say from the age of 36 to 41, I shifted my readings from culture vulturing, so more on literature, philosophy, history, so on and so forth, to more finance, to more investment related. And I've kind of determined that there's really two main factors that cause someone to pursue wealth. And certainly there's more. Everyone's unique, but these are the two main ones that I found. And the first is a desire for luxury. One might say materialism. Okay. And so this would include things like, big houses, designer clothes, second homes, vacation homes, very expensive cars, yachts, private planes with your name on the side of it. So it's very much a Los Angeles flash or a Hollywood flash, kind of a lifestyles of the rich and famous. There was that show, I think Ben Leach or Robin Leach many years ago. So that's one urge. And I would say that is the motivation for most people. I actually fall into the minority here. And I would say the second main motivation is independence. One might also say free time. And so this means that, and this one is more aristocratic, and I would say more noble, to be honest. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the other is awful, but it just means that for me, my motivation is more based on independence and free time. And this is oftentimes, I find that the most successful investors, the Charlie Mungers of the world, the Buffetts, are more motivated by independence than luxuries. So I find oftentimes billionaires are highly independent, whereas just the run-of-the-mill, millionaire is more luxury focused, more lifestyle focused. And so actually Charlie Munger, there's a quotation where he said something to the effect of, I desperately wanted to be rich, not because I wanted Ferraris, I wanted the independence. And then he went on to say, because he was an attorney at first, and he said something to the effect of, I found it undignified to submit invoices. I don't know where I got that idea, but I had it. And that's kind of a Mungerism there, that sense of being independently wealthy. And then when you're independently wealthy, how is it that you conduct your affairs? I often joke with people that I'm essentially a professor without tenure, meaning I spend most of my time in my study, reading books, growing Italian vegetables, as if I lived in Tuscany or Umbria, going to the gym for 2 hours a day as if I were an ancient Greek in the age of Pericles. Um, so these are just 2 points. And as you're watching this video, um, if you're on this channel, first of all, you're probably interested in wealth, whether it's pursuing it, maintaining it, so on and so forth. It's good to ask yourself this question as if we're sitting with Socrates in Athens and saying, he's saying to you, so why is it that you wish to be rich? Is it for consumption? Is it for independence? Is it for status, attention? What is the psychological motivation that you have? And I think it's good for everyone to understand that. And again, there's some people that want that kind of LA, New York, South Florida flash, right? They want that, Bentley, designer handbag, designer clothes, home in East Hampton, or home in Beverly Hills, whatever. And there's not anything wrong with those things, to be honest. I'm just saying, for me, I've understood, and it's always been this way, that I want to own my own time. To me, I tell people this, there's no greater luxury than owning your own time, in my opinion, personally. And it's actually, here's a good way, if you're watching this video and you're trying to figure out, well, who am I? Which camp do I fall in? Let me give you 2 examples. Let's say, for example, option 1 was you were doing a YouTube channel, since we're on YouTube here, right? And your YouTube channel made $100,000 a year, okay? And you answered to no one. You woke up, you conducted your own affairs, you did your own thing, you filmed whatever videos you were filming, and you made $100,000 a year. Or let's say a Fortune 500 company picked up the phone, called you. So let's say, IBM, Cisco, Blackstone, Goldman Sachs, Tesla, and they said, we would like to hire you at $1 million a year salary. This will be your boss. This is who you report to. You answer to them. Okay. So it's a 10X on the 100,000. Which would you choose? So I find that if you're motivated by money, meaning you're motivated by, that's the wrong way to put it. If you're motivated by materialism and luxury, you might take the $1 million a year corporate salary. If you're motivated by independence, you're more likely to take having a YouTube channel that generates $100,000 a year. And then, so I want to transition now, and this fits actually my DNA. I would say that the Greeks and maybe the Jews, those 2 cultures, are the most independent of all cultures. I read a book by, I believe his name is Charles Freeman, on the ancient Greek world. And there's a passage in there. Now, when I do these quotes, mind you, I don't have the books in front of me a lot of times, so I'm paraphrasing. But the quotation is something to the effect of, there was no greater fall for an ancient Greek than to become a landless laborer. So basically to become a worker. For the Greeks, it was to have land was to be free and wealthy. And so the worst thing that you could become was a worker. And you could even take this out philosophically and say, if you're dependent on a salary, a wage, and if someone gives you specific orders that you must follow in order to survive, what does that make you? You could even, again, this might be eccentric, far-fetched, but you could even argue that would make one a slave or a prostitute in the minds of an ancient Greek, right? That someone is giving you orders, and if you do not comply with those orders, you do not receive your salary, your wage, which enables you to survive. So I very much have that ancient Greek DNA in me in many, many ways. My sense of intellectualism, what the great scholar Walter Pater would call the Greek life of the gymnasia. Very sort of upper class Americans. Their leisure hobbies are golf, tennis, squash, so on and so forth. Whereas I'm 2 hours a day in the gym competing with Heracles, Achilles, these sort of ancient sculptures and paintings. It's very unique. I think, again, for very wealthy Americans, it's more of a country club mindset. But anyway, so back to the point is the independence of the Greek spirit here is something that I personally possess. And I think one of the ways you can do that is to be wealthy, is to pursue wealth. It's interesting. And I have these two articles here. And I think that, to me, both have lost the game. So there's this narrative circulating around in sort of right-wing, populist Americana. Sort of a Dave Ramsey or a Mike Rowe mentality, a worker bee mentality, know your wage. And it's Americans don't want to work. No one wants to go back to work. They'd rather collect government checks. And then the leftist narrative on that is, well, they don't want to go back to work for slave wages or for not a living wage. And the solution is to raise the minimum wage from, I don't know, whatever it is, to $12, $15, $18 an hour. But I think that if you hold either view, you've lost the game. So let's just look. This is on the Hill. It's time for Americans to get back to work. So go be a good boy, a good girl, and get back to work. Go collect your salary, your wage. Be a good boy, be a good girl. Here, let's see. It says, when it comes to the great American work ethic, our country is hurtling down the wrong path. The Biden administration is putting America into an increasingly dangerous situation by expanding the class of people who simply don't want to work, preferring instead to simply collect government checks. Okay. And then the counter argument is going to be on like a CNN, other more left leaning, and they're going to argue here, Americans don't want to go back to normal, and that makes sense. Okay. So they're going to argue, take this job and shove it. So it's the great withdrawal. There's different ways that's being described. But let me just say this. You shouldn't want to work. Okay. I know that's sort of revolutionary or whatever. And it shouldn't be that you don't want to work and collect government paychecks. You shouldn't want to work because you're independently wealthy and your investments are supporting you. That's how the wealthy live, where your investments are supporting you. So whether it's real estate investments, cash flow investments, whether it's dividends from stocks, maybe you're owning a business, you're not a worker. So if you're reading this and you're like, yeah, other people, my neighbor or this person doesn't want to get up and hit the alarm clock, and I feel like you lost the game. And then I also feel like if you're fighting for a $15, you're a worker and you're fighting for $15 or $18, like you've lost the game. You don't understand wealth. So, that's just my opinion. And if you're on this channel, obviously you want to get rich, right? I mean, you're on a finance channel. The idea of finance is that you have money and you're putting that money to work, and it's multiplying. I mean, what is it that I do with investing? I simply allocate capital in order to multiply that capital. So I never have to be this. I never have to be dependent on either an employer, which is what kind of this, like the Hill wants you to be dependent on, or the government, right? It's true, in a way, Greek independence. It's the Greek worldview. And it's interesting with the Protestant work ethic. There are different periods of history, and one, with regard to work, and the ancient Greeks didn't admire work for in and of itself as an end. The great 19th century romantics, the aesthetes, Byron, Keats, Shelley, that crowd, Oscar Wilde, Walter Pater, the scholars, philosophers, work for its own sake wasn't necessarily noble. But it seems to be in modern society something that if you don't do, then you're looked down upon by the right, by the left. So anyway, so yeah, these are just sort of my pontifications. Like I said, this video isn't specific to investing. This isn't, is Exxon a better place to place capital than Chevron? Should you buy Blackstone stock or KKR? Should you sell your stocks because a big crash is coming? Should you invest in real assets versus paper assets? So it's a little bit different. It's more philosophy. It's more navel gazing. And the Greeks were the best navel gazers of all time, one might say. So in your own navel gazing, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. Is it, something where you're watching this video and saying, how dare you think that way? Or who do you think you are? You're having delusions of grandeur. Your ego is out of control. Or is it like, wow, I like this. I want to pursue this worldview, this lifestyle. So love to hear any likes or, feedback on that. Hope all is well. Take care. Ciao.